Okay, so welcome back after quite a long break to Short Track Radio. We can see we've picked up a new co-host, Cody Brown, and we've also picked up a sponsor, Smartwash. And Cody obviously repping the Smartwash branding. Our guests today are Kyle and Gerry Vantreight, the two generations of Vantreight racing family. Obviously, Gerry's dad, Bob, very heavily involved in super modified racing before Gerry got behind the wheel, and Gerry's son, Kyle, also racing in mini stocks and wing sprint cars throughout the Northwest. And Cody, fittingly enough, repping his dad, Terry's vintage Vantreight crew shirt from back in the 80s, I think, Cody?
80. He figured about 82. His memory's also shot. So I think, about 82 they figured. 81, we found a picture from 82. So somewhere in there.
I can't imagine why the memory's shot.
No.
Stories we've heard as we've grown up, Cody.
Yes, the stories we're not allowed to tell today.
Yeah.
There's
stories.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all truth. That's the problem.
There's been a select few that have been collected here that we're going to try and plug into here. And right off the bat, Cody, I think he got maybe a California trip back in the day that your dad was filling you in about. Yeah.
Maybe just do a little background of what cars you're running and why super modifieds, and then we can get into maybe the California story.
Right. Well,
give him some practice talking.
Exactly.
I was lucky enough to get involved through my dad. Obviously, we talked about my dad. And actually, before my dad, there was my uncle, Gerald, who was racing in the 30s and 40s. So, Vantreight go way back in racing in Victoria. I was lucky enough to start, I guess it was 1977. I shared a year with Alan Smith, Roy Smith's older brother, who's since passed on. And then 78 was my first full year. And
now was it in a super?
I started in a super.
Which is smart. Why try Go Karts or like anything else?
We actually talked about building a mini stock. There was a fellow in town by the name of Ross McIntyre who was heavily involved in mini stocks, and I had a little Cortina that would have been perfect for it, but as Dad says, we have no time for that stuff. We got one race car, and that's either start. I was actually never even allowed to race. It was Alan Smith and I at Monroe, and I said to, in those days we traveled in the back of the pickup truck, as your dad would know, that's how we did. Pickup truck in those days only had, 2 seats or squeeze 3 in. So Alan Smith and I were in the back of the canopy or the back of the truck, and I said to Alan, let me drive the car tonight. What do you mean? I says, well, Dad will never let me drive the car, so you and I are going to have to switch. Don't tell Dad, and let's see how the day goes. That's how I got started.
And he didn't kill you. That's good.
Didn't kill me. Actually, we had a good day.
Yep.
We qualified well, won a trophy dash, won the heat race, and nervous as heck, some lady fell down in the grandstands and broke her arm. So that was about an hour-long delay. And of course, I was so nervous. I sat in the car and squeezing the steering wheel. I had bruises on both arms because I was so nervous. Everyone else got out of the car and paced around, and not me. I was too nervous. So That was my start. And a funny story on that, when I won the trophy dash, I came into the pits and I said to Alan Smith, we're going to have to do something with your helmet, because every time you hit the bump on the backstretch, the helmet goes over my eyes. And one of the fellas I raced against, who was semi-professional at the time, he says, give it time, kid, your head will swell.
Ah, nice. Yeah. There's some reports of that. That's good. Sorry, go ahead.
So do you want to maybe describe the feeling of climbing behind the wheel, one of those things, for the first time?
I don't know if I really, apart from being nervous, it just seemed like something I wanted to do. It was, I never really drove much in the way of go-karts because, we just never had time. And I grew up basically in the hospital, so it was, I didn't get involved like Kyle. He started go-karts when he was 6. Well, I didn't get out of the hospital until I was 12. So, and then I started living with my dad, and of course that's how I got involved with racing. That's all we did was, there was parts in the living room all the time, and stuff downstairs, upstairs.
Nice. So fast forward a little bit, we do have some intel on you, some different stories. I know there's probably 1,000 you can go over and stuff about different trips and wins and losses and whatnot, but one that came up last night in conversation was a trip in California involving Rebel Jackson Jr. and a little bit of maybe ruckus after the bar when you were trying to get some sleep.
Well, the race was supposed to be Saturday night, and it rained out, so the race was now going to be Sunday. It was 2 50-lap mains back-to-back. There was a few guys in our crew that decided that let's go to the bar. Well, I have to race Sunday, and I can't go to the bar. Actually, I wouldn't drink 3-4 days before the race anyway. So I got back to the hotel room, and Rebel Jackson Jr.'s TV was on too loud. So I asked him nicely if he'd turn it off, and his answers weren't too nice coming back to me. So I was fortunate enough that his room wasn't locked. I went in and turned the TV off, and I said, Tiger, you and I got a race tomorrow. We need to get some sleep. Yeah, you're right. So I no sooner got back into my bed, the TV was cranked even louder this time. And so I'm banging on the wall. Tiger, turn your TV off. We got to get some sleep, man. No, the answers were even worse than the first time. So I got my shorts back on, went around. This time the door's locked. So I have no way of turning the TV off. Well, we got Tiger swearing and cursing at me and giving me a bad time with his face pressed up against the screen window. The window was open, so I gave him a one punch. And the next day, I never even thought about it. I mean, the TV never did get quiet that night, but I felt better because I hit him.
Yeah.
The next day, Tiger's dad, Rebel Senior, come up and he said, "What did you do to my kid?" I don't know. I hit him. Well, he can't drive the race car today. I said, "Well, why?" He says, "Maybe you haven't seen him yet." Well, upon seeing him a little bit later, I understood why. His nose was way over to the side of his face, and both eyes were absolutely shut.
So you turned the TV down next time.
Either that or didn't room beside you.
Yeah, exactly. Jerry,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing that now. That'd probably be a lawsuit going now.
Yeah, no doubt. So, a little bit about the beginning of your racing career, Jerry and Kyle. If you talk a little bit how you started. We both kind of ran Go Karts together a little bit.
Kind of started in the mall parking or in the parking lot at Camosun College.
Yeah.
It's kind of really where it all started for me. My grandfather passed away when I was 4 or 5, I guess, and kind of made the promise that he was going to give me my first race car, which ended up being a go kart, and we got it when I was 5, maybe 6. Started running it when I was 6, but couldn't run it anywhere till we were 8 officially. When they were running up at Cassidy, so I started predominantly up at Cassidy as far as running races and racing. We did a few races at Western on the oval with kind of select shows on a Saturday or it was usually Monday like all these Mondays. I think we used to.
We
run
did
them.
some on Saturday. We did some on Monday at Western Speedway and Saratoga. So
and we kind of had a lot of fun running on the oval. And I mean, my favorite person to race against was Dave Bell.
No, none taken.
I'm sorry, but you weren't 72 years old.
Yeah, fair, yeah.
You were 77, I think, when I first started against him.
he changed his license plate number, his car number every time he aged one.
And unfortunately, he passed away this past year. But it was somebody that, always happy to be there, and he'd be coming up there high-fiving me, and here I am, this 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, running races, and he was older than my grandfather at the time would have been, and out there enjoying it just as much as I was. So that was, to me, it was always special running with him.
And that was kind of a cool time in karting on the island because you had the Chemainus Grand Prix, Port Alberni Grand Prix, the kind of street race scene that developed there for a few years too.
Yeah, the Chemainus Grand Prix was probably my favorite race. One of my favorite races. We did a street race in Boise, Idaho, which is really kind of where I found some speed in a go-kart. My first rookie year, I was really not that good. We went out to Idaho, and longtime friends of ours, the Veenstras, who my dad drove for Modifies for a few years, their son Cody was racing as well, and we went out there for this invitational race, and kind of found some speed. Next thing we got a trophy at the end of the weekend, and I was hooked, and suddenly I was committed to pushing myself maybe more than I had been, or just growing up a little bit, and got the bug. So we did go-karts till I was 14. When I was 14, we started running mini stocks, and we started building a mini stock with Jim Mackay, who's has been a big proponent of my racing. Between my dad and Jim, I wouldn't be doing this without those two individuals. We started building mini stock at 12, and at the end of it would have been 2002 season, I raced Matt Mansell's car for the last race of the year at mini stock. And we realized 2 days before the race I didn't even know how to drive standard because I was only 14 years old. So Keith Armstrong took me out in Munns Road, and here I am learning standard on Munns Road at 14 years old, trying to figure out how I'm going to drive a race car.
Allegedly you're on the
Yes.
road.
It's got to be
Possibly.
statute of limitations.
Yeah, there's something there
So
somewhere.
we ran mini stock for a few years, and then 2006, first year in the sprint car with the Will Rock Series.
And maybe talk about the transition to sprint car and kind of how that came out. I think Gerry can interject a little bit in between the two of you about the transition to Will Rock, which was pretty big at that time.
Yeah, I mean, Will Rock was huge at that point.
Yeah, we had a lot of 23 cars, 24 cars all the time, and some really good drivers. And most of those guys, like Montgomery's and Yates and Scotty Allman, and they all won NSRA championships and went on to
Jason Bolio. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a long list of
long
guys
list
that
of
were
cars.
really
And it was
good.
a tough series.
And I mean, the NSRA would come to town, once or twice a year, and the competition even stepped up further when those guys showed up. But it was still Will Rock guys that predominantly won a lot of the races. So it was a big jump, but I don't think it was really that far out of reach. Mini stock's a great series to learn, just being smooth. I mean, I recall on a few occasions. I mean, what did Russell Lejeune say to you one time when you were watching?
Yeah, Russ came up to me and says, "You need to come and see this." I said, "What are you talking about?" "Watch your kid." So I'm watching, and he goes, "What do you see?" I said, "Actually, I don't see anything." He says, "That's what I'm talking about. Look at his hands. His hands weren't moving." When I get in these cars, my hands are sawing logs the whole time, right? And I look at Kyle, and it's like, whoa. So yeah, it made a big difference growing up with Go Karts and into the mini stocks, because you couldn't do that stuff. Scrubbing speed, you go slower by going faster. So I think it was a big advantage for Kyle to start Go Karts, do the mini stocks, and then go into the sprint cars. I mean, all those sprint cars are fast, but you are still faster by being smooth. And smooth is what he learned, and that's something I never did learn.
Yeah, those lower classes do. Now, do you think you learned a little more at Cassidy with braking and more turns, or with a higher speed in the go-karts at Western?
Probably learned more in the rain.
Wilson?
Well, most of them we did a lot in the rain, but Cassidy, we ran a lot of races in the rain. And I mean, I probably should have backed it down, or definitely should have backed it down, because I mean, when the go-karts in the rain, I'd be flying, and we'd be,
He'd be way ahead, and then not slow down. The next thing, we'd be spun out, and here we go again, back through the field again. And you think after 2 or 3 times of spinning out and going back through the field, he'd slow down, but he never did. He just kept his foot in it. It was actually quite fun to watch.
We're talking a 12-lap go-kart race at Cassidy. I mean, it was a pretty big mountain. Our track was pretty large, but
yeah.
To go to the back 2 or 3 times in a rain race, that was probably that was really fun.
And I think Gerry's comments that it was pretty fun to watch is maybe a little bit different from some other parents who would maybe not be as inclined to see their sons spinning out in a go-kart at the age of 12.
Wow, I mean, hold on. I think we've all witnessed him pacing around the infield at Western with the sprint cars too. So, I'm sure he enjoys it. He does enjoy it, but
I always say it was payback. My dad at times he would never even, especially the bigger tracks, Monroe's and the half-mile Tri-Cities, he would sit in the pits, his hands between his eyes, and not watch because he was too nervous. So it was always payback, I always say. Watching Kyle do it was the same thing for me. It was like way easier to drive than watch your son or daughter drive a race car.
Now, do you think it's, for you, looking back to your racing career, the wins you've had, championships and stuff like that, was it just as much fun to watch your son win?
It was way more rewarding watching Kyle do it. And, I've always said Kyle was a way better driver than I was, ever will be, and never hope to be. So for that part, it was kind of nice watching him go through the field. In my day, the cars were so much different. Most of them were home built, not that all the same cars now. So Kyle, I think, has a better opportunity as far as all the cars are pretty much the same. We raced against rear engine cars, 20-inch offset cars, sprint cars, and I had a 6-inch offset.
So explain some of the offset for some people who might not know. So I know we have some video going now on a car, but just if you take a standard car, the tire is the same width.
Yeah,
and just explain the sprint car to the super.
They're down the middle of. If you draw a line down the center of the car, that's where the motors are now. The axles will be offset a little bit more, but I had a motor that was 5 inches to the left, thinking that was more left side weight that would make it better. Then we went to the 18, 20-inch offset cars where the motor actually sat outside the frame, and again thinking that was the best for left side weight, and then of course rear engine cars where the motor sat in the back with behind the driver. So,
And rules-wise, you could do what you want for that, or what was the rule?
Yeah, rules. We didn't have many rules in those days, and you know what? A lot less complaining.
Yeah.
You know, the rules are all the same now, and for everybody. And it seems like everyone's complaining more, and there's more tech, and this person's cheating, that person's cheating. Whereas in my day, you know, we didn't really have rules, and no one complained.
It wasn't cheating; they just outsmarted us. That's the way you used to look at it.
Well, if you cheated and didn't get caught, you weren't cheating.
Or if they created rules about a movable nose wing or something of that
yeah.
nature too. I mean, I think
Rules
there's a pretty good story there
rules
too.
were always changed as people made something different that someone didn't like. You know?
And so, going back to your super modified days, Gerry, I think your first big win came back at Strawberry Cup in around 1980?
79.
79.
Yeah, 79, yeah. We were actually quite lucky to win that one. Dad was very fussy about how much fuel you put in the race car. I always like filling them up because it doesn't, you know, that extra 5 pounds isn't going to make much difference. For Dad, no, I don't want to keep it near the top. So the last couple of laps, we actually ran out of fuel as they crossed the finish line. And we were actually quite lucky to win that one. We, you know, by far the fastest car. It made it a little more entertaining for the people in the stands and myself.
Obviously, 79, we weren't born then, but do you remember your first race watching your dad? Did you ever travel around at all? I don't recall if...
I don't remember my first race of what I watched. I mean, I know there was a lot of pictures from Western. You know, he'd only race there once or twice a year. It was really all we'd run at home. So, you know, I didn't see a whole lot of races. We did do a few trips here and there, but I mean, my sister's 4 years older than me, so you know, both of us were still fairly young at the time, and you know, not the most easy to travel around with as far as taking on a race trip. You know, especially with the crews that, you know, sprint cars and super modifieds needed, and not to mention the crew that was associated with my dad's crew. They're quite the characters, and you and I have grown up with them as you know, as family. I mean, you know, like Rick is, you know, he's an uncle to both of us, but he's not an uncle by any means.
Yeah, Jason White was sending a message on Facebook saying that it was a first reality TV show before reality TV shows watching you guys. They figured about 11 or 12 or so around the racetrack, and he has fond memories or very vivid ones about what was going on back then, and how much fun it was. And I think it's maybe a little bit of difference from today to back then. Was it seemed a little bit more of a community. You travel a little bit more. The whole family went, or at least a couple times a year they go and vacation around it. Now it seems that life's getting busy for a lot of people, but how do you guys find time to run the cars that are around us here?
Well, fortunately for me, I'm retired, so it makes it way easier for me to just come out, you know, 200 yards and back in my shop. Kyle, living in Vancouver, he gets over as much as he can, but we don't expect him to be over every weekend because it's expensive for him going back and forth. So we're lucky we have, you know, Lori Beach over at Cox, and Jim Mackay and myself. You know, we can work as much as we want. You know, apart from Jim, Rick and Lori and myself are retired, so we just pick an afternoon and plug away and have fun. And Jimmy will come over and work till the evening and midnight. I want to be in bed by then, but Jimmy's a workaholic, and he's just by far the best guy I've ever had associated with working on race cars. So, like Kyle said earlier, we're very fortunate to have Jim Mackay.
Now, talking about an all-star crew, I heard a story about maybe a race in Portland where things didn't go so well, and you went to try and find a ride home, and the crew might have been not at their best operating capacity.
You know, you always say payback. You know, Rebel Jackson was the one that put me in the wall at Portland, and I ended up with, you know, a punctured lung and some shoulder injuries and some arm injuries. And the doctor just refused to let me leave that night. And I says, well, I got to get, you know, back to Victoria. So he said, okay, well, under no circumstances can you be driving. That's fine. I got a crew that'll get me home. So when I got back to the racetrack, the crew wasn't, they were in no driving standards because they didn't expect me to come home. So we were going to stay the night. So I promised the doctor I'd get home. So I ended up driving them home.
And that's the story I had too was, well, yeah, we didn't think he was going to come back from the hospital that quick. And I'm like, yeah, but you still made him drive home. Like, you could have waited a few hours and someone could have driven, but no, they seemed to be very helpful, or didn't seem to be very helpful in that matter.
Well, you know, it's one of those deals. I mean, I understood that, you know, Lori and Rick and your dad, they liked their beers after the races, and I was the one that was mostly on the hook for driving home, and I expected to to drive because they did lots of work during. I always thought it was easier to drive than being a crew member. Now I know that it's way easier to be a driver than a crew member.
You should live in a different city, and then you don't have to.
Yeah, there you go.
Especially the last few years with Blake being around, it's been a lot more of a challenge to just come over for a weekend or every weekend, or I used to come over a fair bit when it was just me, and work from 8 a.m. till midnight in the shop and just full on let's go race mode. Now where it's a lot more of a pick my battle as to when we're getting over here, and more reliant on, like I say, my dad and Jim and Rick and Lori, and a few others that help out from here and there. I think one of the good stories from you guys traveling days that I always liked was Grandpa and the chocolate thingies in Meridian, where he learned that it's not so easy being.
I felt sorry for Dad at times because we were pretty young and he's old, and there would be times where I felt sorry for Dad. I'm pretty glad that you're not like we were now that I'm the dad. There was a couple of times there where Dad would get pretty mad at us and we'd have to pack up early. He'd had enough of it. So.
I was pretty young, but you guys, I do remember working on. You guys had a small shop, did a lot of stuff yourself. On a super modified, you're still doing it with hands.
Yep.
How was that relationship working with your dad? Things you do differently, the same, or how was it?
Oh, it was great. Dad he had a huge temper with a short fuse, but we all worked around that. And Dad was very passionate about racing. That was his whole life. He didn't play sports. He didn't do other things. He didn't go to the bar. His life was come home, work on the race car. At work, he'd build parts to race cars. He was a machinist at the BMD. In those days, he pretty much built everything. Right now, you can buy pretty much everything off the race car store, as I call them. So, Dad was very passionate, and I was very lucky to have Dad in my life for as far as racing went. It was tough sometimes. I would try and make cars lighter, try and go quicker, but Dad says, no son of mine's going to sit in the car when it's not that safe. So he'd always build things a little heavier and a little more sturdy. So, I respected that.
So then kind of flip that to you now, racing with your dad. How was that from Go Karts, learning how to drive essentially in the back rows with other racers teaching you, and then have your old man be your spotter and stuff?
I mean, spotter. Come on, this is not fender racing. Cody. You're
Yeah.
showing your style of racing.
These stupid things don't have fenders on them.
fenders.
You're supposed to touch it.
No fenders, no radios.
Clear inside.
I would probably unplug it anyways. To be
That's
honest,
why I have the headset on right now. I can't do anything with racing without someone talking in my ear.
No, it's been great. I mean, we started, like I say, I was 6 when we started this, and we've been doing it on 32 now. So 26 years on and off of racing. I mean, there's a few times where I was living too far away, working for the railway, where I was living, far enough away that I wasn't getting back out here to do racing. Been fortunate where the times where I've been in Vancouver for a long time here now, where getting back over here and getting back into racing has been something we've been able to do together. And that's the biggest thing, is it's brought us together as far as spending time together. And, when I was younger, it kept me out of trouble as far as doing things, because I'm too busy working on the race car, and that's what I wanted to do. That's where I grew up. And I was raised on, if I'm at home and not working on the race car, Dad's not working on the race car either, and we're not going racing if the car's not ready. So, we were out in the shop, and that's what we did.
And so maybe talk about, you were too far away. You had to take a bit of time off from racing, but talk about getting back into racing and how cool it's been since you guys have been back. And I think 2016 was the first year you guys came back after a little bit.
We stopped after 2007, partway through 2007. My mom had passed away, and I just needed to get away. So I moved at that time to Edmonton, started on with CN Rail, and kind of started a career with them. And then in 2009, 2010, I moved back to Vancouver. And we kind of started up a little bit. We ran, I think, 3 races that year. First one out, we won. And, that was, we were talking off air earlier when Mitch was driving for Dad for a few years there. And then, we kind of jumped right back in the seat and like we hadn't missed a beat.
I even had to drive a couple of times.
That was scary for everyone.
Cody said, his dad says, Terry says, "Why do you get back in the car?" Well, good idea. So no,
he was kidding.
Runs. We had a couple good runs. We
kidding.
finished 3rd or 4th in that Strawberry Cup. The 50 lap darn near killed me, but
What year was that?
I think probably
It was 2010.
2010.
2010, yeah.
Yeah. So we went up to Saratoga, ran there, and got a little tap in the back, put it in the wall. But it was fun to get back in the car. And to be honest with you, I'd like to get back in one now. But
we got one right here for you, a little mini sprint.
Thank goodness we got little Blake. He's now my next generation coming up. So I don't know if you can pan to that picture of that car, but that'll be our next full venture.
Yeah, there's a reason this car's been 10 years in the making, putting it back together, so he doesn't get in and drive it. There's a thought process behind that one.
Nice.
And so, I mean, to your point with 2016, that's when we kind of came back, and I think it was 2015. I moved back to Vancouver and kind of started coming back around the racetrack and got the bug again. And then Aaron Willison had started his first year, and through Ryan Patterson, who Aaron and him had kind of been friends through the mini stocks a little bit, and just started talking to Aaron. Well, find out him and I live 10 minutes away from each other, so I started helping him a little bit that year. And I'd always kind of thought that it was something I wanted to do again, but I wasn't really ready to make that financial commitment. Started looking around, and in 2016, we bought our car off Lance Wade. Kind of started going full bore on let's go racing again. And like I said, we've been 15 about that. It's been fun. It's been something that I've really enjoyed getting back into. We've had some moments where we've really enjoyed it, and then we've had some a couple of low motors where it's really put us down and out for a while, and that's been a struggle, is to deal with the lows. But the highs, this past year we ran 5 races. We won 2 of them, finished 5th, and we had a crash and a blown motor. But the races we ran, all 5 of them, we were in contention. I never felt like we were that slow. And this, to me, this was our best year, and it just shows how much commitment we've got from my guy, from my crew guys and my dad and myself to want to keep doing this, even though we know we're not going to do it on a full-time basis, and we're not spending the money that some others in the series we race against have to be able to do so.
And maybe talk about the highs and the lows of that Daffodil Cup weekend back in 2019, where you managed to get the Roy Smith Memorial win on the Friday night, but then things didn't go quite. They were going pretty good on the Saturday, but then it went downhill pretty quickly.
Yeah, if you had a radio, somebody to tell you, no one behind you, you wouldn't have to hit anyone.
We're talking Daffodil.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Again, me off the radio. And,
yes.
Unfortunately, Cody lost the motor, so that was
the wrong one.
With the radio, Cody can be reminded what race.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that's why he needed the radio.
That's why, exactly.
When Kyle mentioned the lows, that was pretty darn low. That one hurt, but
the whole weekend was. We started. The Thursday practice, we weren't very happy with it. I was not happy, and this was coming off the Strawberry Cup weekend where we were pretty good, and we had some unfortunate where I got into the back of Darren on the first night of the Strawberry. But fast forward to Daffodil, we were looking forward to it. We thought we'd found back some of the speed we had from the first race of the year, and practice night we were terrible, and unfortunately I had to go right after practice back to Vancouver to attend one of my appointments for Blake, my son, and the guys kind of threw the kitchen sink at it Friday morning while I was away, and I flew back to right back into the harbor and drove out to the track, and we got in for practice, and I was like, okay, we're pretty good. And I think it was after qualifying, Jim Mackay and I looked at each other and kind of gave ourselves a wink of, it's not going to be the fastest car, but it's going to race real well. And that's exactly what happened. And kind of got a good jump on the main event. Found a couple of lanes that probably shouldn't have existed, but did, and got way out front for a while, and it just ran with it till it hit traffic, and then Jeff started catching us. It's just, I was being a little more patient than I probably needed to with some of the lappers, but it wasn't worth it. And then fast forward Saturday night, we felt we still had the same good car, and weren't quite as quick, speed-wise overall in it, just with the track change and the different set of tires. And unfortunately, lost the motor with 15 to go following Robbie Price, and we thought we were in pretty good shape there. Where Jeff had no brakes at that point. I didn't know it, but I thought he was coming for me as well. So we probably would have finished okay there.
Plans for next year? You said you're going to run a little bit of a limited series.
Is that this year?
next racing season. We're not sure when this is getting released. This is December 2019. So we're talking about 2020.
Yeah.
We do need someone to give me information on this headset. Tom, you're not doing your job.
Your director.
He knows nothing about racing, but he could be telling me the right facts and figures and stuff.
We're getting
pretty good when we're family, and we've been family enough for a lot of years. So you can just sit here and take this, and you're not pushing back at all because it's not going to get turned down.
You used to be a lot smaller than me because you're 3-4 years younger, but also you grew like 6 inches, and so But
we got another motor, so that was losing that motor last year. We all kind of thought that was the end of our racing. But
I was ready to put the car up for sale. I just said that right then and there. We're done.
I can't see having a good car with no motor, so I was able to come across some money, and we got a motor for this year. So hopefully we're gonna have to baby it because we can't turn it as many RPM as some guys do because obviously we can't afford it. But we should be in pretty good shape this year.
So, we'll run the Wayne Stocking Series and just kind of keep local and run the NSRA races when they're in town. And if we make it partway through the season unscathed and we're feeling like we still got some energy to go do something, we'll run something else, as the season progresses. It's not something that we're definitely saying we're chasing any certain series. We'll run the Wayne Strucking stuff because it's just close, and it's a good thing to be supportive of our local track and our local series, and it's just what we enjoy doing. So that's the plan for those, and we've made some changes to the car, and looking forward to kind of putting it back together here in the next coming months. And then we've been slowly tinkering on the old girl from 2010 when it had an ill-fated weekend of 2 crashes in 2 nights, and putting the second car back together, our old Will Rock car for Jim Mackay. At some point we'll make an appearance hopefully this year.
Nice, and obviously it'll be good to get the old geriatrics girl back out. She's been mothballed for a little while.
It's been mothballed, and it was kind of an eyesore in the corner where we didn't want to look at it for a long time and kind of in the way, but Dad didn't want us to get rid of it, and here it is now, slowly going back together. We
got all the pieces.
Yeah, so we've had it together a lot further than we've been, and take it back apart because we want to change something else. So we're getting close. So.
They want me to change the color, but I refuse, so it's going to go back as pink again.
Rick loves pink. Yeah. Great. Talk about maybe a little bit about mini stocks and the wins there. How many years did you run mini stocks?
We ran 3 or 4 seasons with the mini stock. It was something that Jim Mackay kind of had a vision of building a 240 when they first kind of came out, and ended up being a torch job, that car. And Paul Klatt, who was in the auto body industry, found it, and we kind of had it for. Paul had it sitting there for a couple of years. So we started building that, and that's really where I started getting around cars, because it was all Go Karts for me at that point, and the super modified stab was running away, so I didn't really run with them too much. But we started and built the car from scratch, and I really got hands-on and involved in it, and that's where I really fell in love with racing, was not just at the track, but the time spent in the shop. And we ran that from 2001 to 2005. 2005 we won the mini stock championship here in Victoria, which was was a good series at the time. At times we had 20 cars in that class as well. And a lot of classes have gone cyclical in fields over the years, but it'd be one series that I think is good to get back, because you look, Aaron Willis and myself both been back, history of mini stock racing, and both been very successful in the sprint car. It shows that there's something in that class that produces good drivers.
Do you think it's maybe the lack of power and the fact that it's more of a momentum car where you have to keep the momentum up in one of those things?
I think it's definitely a good contributing factor of it. But you look at the two different styles. Aaron's not very smooth in a sprint car, and it works for him. And I'm kind of the polar opposite. I don't like to step the car out at all. And I also know that if I'm wrecking it, I'm fixing it myself. And we done or fixing it with the team, but.
Is that my outside voice?
The bill's got to get paid somewhere, and it's.
Yeah, I think I can do that too.
I know you do. But it was a good series, and we had a lot of good moments in there. We should have had a lot more wins. We went through camshafts and rocker arms on a regular basis. I remember one race we broke a rocker arm during the race. Yellow came out. I came in at the right time, and they managed to change. Was Jimmy there even? I know it was just you.
It was me.
Changed a rocker arm under yellow. Went back out, no hood on, and I think we won the race.
Yeah.
After changing a rocker arm mid-race. And that was it was a regular occurrence for us to break a rocker arm or a camshaft. And
one thing we never did figure out, did we?
No.
Jim Mackay, who's the guru of Nissan motors, he never figured out we could put his motor in our car and it would break a camshaft too. So.
I see that.
Yeah, we used to go down and run open comp races down a couple in California, at Lakeport, California, and then Butch Ben's track in Tenino. And we ran Jimmy's motor one race and looking good for the Sunday race. Sunday morning practice, go out, blow the motor up, broke the camshaft.
So yeah, we don't know. Still to this day, we don't know.
Nice. So if you're trying to promote racing and get people to get into it, how would you recommend doing that? Just come around the track. Which class would you recommend people starting out in? What's the first sort of 5 steps?
Just come out and be a part of it at first. I mean, that's the biggest thing is come out and be a spectator and be someone that observes it and ask questions. Come down into the pit area. We do the Fan Fest every week at Western and ask questions. Come sit in the cars. That's a big thing for the little kids to come down and that's where it starts is getting the kid and the family involvement. As far as class,
I think they still got the Go Karts at Western Speedway, do they not? And it depends what age you're starting, but that would be the place you want to start.
Yeah, they have. Obviously, it's now taken over by the Speedway, and during the off season, it's on Saturdays. Occasionally on Saturdays, kind of as the weather gets better, it shifts to Monday nights throughout the summer. So
that's how Kyle started. That's how Cody started. And it was in the Go Karts, and then as far as classes, there's so many classes at Western Speedway now. It kind of depends on what budget you want to spend and how much time you want to dedicate to the sport. I mean, that's the thing I noticed with Kyle, and it kind of bothered me, but it's what happens in racing. When you grow up with a team sport, like you did, Cody, with lacrosse or hockey, you get a camaraderie with a lot of kids your own age, right? Whereas Kyle, he switched from playing lacrosse just to racing, and now he's hanging with his dad and his dad's friends, right? Mm-hmm. So you lose that camaraderie with a lot of your own age group friends, but it's hard to keep age group friends in a specific race car because, first off, there's not the knowledge because they haven't got that knowledge yet, and they don't bring the cash that the older people bring too.
Need to have, yeah.
Yeah, so as far as racing, when you start young, it's a tough choice to make because it's hard to do both as far as, be a team sport, play lacrosse, and then expect to have your dad or your friends work on a race car while you're playing another sport. So you give up one to get the other. So I kind of made that choice too. I found it would have been nicer if I'd stayed with team sports, but I had a dad that loved racing, and my way to being tight with dad was being with a race car, much like Kyle with me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think it's back for story time now because Cody's got a nice list. So you want to go down the list?
Yeah, I had 1,000 stories, but I'm only allowed to bring up like 2. The Tri-Cities race. It's a location I had. You and Davey Hamilton. You're running about a second quicker than everyone, and then a little bit of a melee with a wing.
We had an issue, did we?
We had apparently a little issue about a wing.
Who told you this story? That's what I need to know.
We'll set the scene here first. Tri-Cities was a really fast D-shaped oval down in Washington State, and that I think was about a half mile.
It's a half mile.
Yeah.
Try 3 turns. I think at the time it was the fastest half mile track in North America at that time. When Davey and I said,
what kind of speeds you getting, you think?
I have no idea. Probably 150, 160, I think.
Technology wasn't quite the same there.
But I was lucky enough to buy a wing for the Super Modified at a reasonable price because I'm trying to count pennies. And Davey Hamilton fortunately had one, so I drove to Boise and with the van and put her in the van and brought her home. And our next race was Tri-Cities, and actually Davey and I both timed in a second quicker than the third place car. So in those days, if you were a second quicker than the car, you started on the front row. So Davey and I started on the front row. The other 16 cars started behind us. So I believe I won the race and Davey was second. Or maybe Davey won and I was second. I don't know. I can't remember that. But anyway, someone protested Davey's wing because it was illegal. And I thought, good. Ours is good because I had Lawrence, one of the guys on our crew, measure it. He said it was perfect. So we had certain square inches we were allowed to run. Can't remember what the numbers were, but anyway, Davey knew that wing was illegal because that's why he sold it. So he protested us. So both of us were illegal. Instead of finishing 1-2 or 2-1, we were dead last, second to last. So can't trust your own guys' measures.
Yeah, Lawrence. Poor Lawrence. He's getting crapped on during this podcast.
Well, apparently he didn't add right. His numbers.
The whole math problem.
Wasn't there an issue with a wheel 1.2? With Boise? Left rear wheel?
No, I don't remember that.
I thought you had a wheel come off with an axle broke.
Oh, no, that was a wheel. But that was just a mistake. That was at Butch's track. No.
So do you have any issues with rules or different things that in mini stocks or in sprint cars, anything else that's happened in your career that tech-wise that you're disqualified for? Or you're still good?
We've been pretty good. I mean, I think I learned a lot of lessons from the years of hearing stories that we didn't really explore and push some of those issues, or have, and you find the gray area, and it's gray for a reason, and you explore off of it. So nothing that we've been, in my career at least, it's been sticks out of my head. And I guess Go Karts, we had when wasn't illegal. We found a good speed secret on a Comer motor, which was a Go Kart motor we ran, and we went out and ran one race, and we were way quicker than everyone else. Well, people quickly found out the secret, and it was a one race wonder where we were a fair bit quicker than anyone else.
And everyone copied us. I always say racers are the biggest copiers there is. Someone finds something that's fast, and next thing you know, everyone's got it. So,
going back, did you have sponsors on the Super, or was it just?
No, it is mostly my dad at the time, and it's I've had people help us throughout the years. Your father and you're helping Kyle. I've had Danny Houston with Houston Signs. He does all our lettering and tries to make our cars look pretty, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's something that unless we commit to a full season, it's hard to find sponsors because we can't commit. We don't know what we're doing as far as the next race, and I hate to take someone's money and not use it to their advantage and just put it in our pocket. That's not fair either. So I think this year we got to look a little bit because we've been spending a little bit more money this winter that we weren't prepared to spend. Obviously, losing that motor at the end of last year, we're going to have to try and figure a way of going forward with a big dent in our wallet already. So
yeah. Excellent. Do you want to do the rapid fire, some questions? Do you have anything else you want to
we're getting up on our time limit here, so we'll start a little bit of rapid fire. Where did the 66 come from, the number?
I wonder about that myself. I know Billy Foster had 66 for a long time, and my dad was actually quite angry at me switching over. I mean, the number 27 had been retired in Victoria, and I was pretty neat that 27 stayed retired for a long time, but I was in kind of I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, a pissing match with the Sneva family. I ran 90. They ran 98 for years. Jan Sneva had 98, and they didn't register their number on time. So me being the guy I was, I ran 98 because actually that was the number Billy ran, I think, at one time too. So I wanted 98. It made my dad extremely mad, and the Sneva family terribly mad because they've had 98 for years. So the following year I switched to 66, and I stayed with that because it was the number I believe Billy ran, and Kyle's, when he started driving, that was the number we put on his go-kart. He stayed with it since too. So.
Yeah, you were 66 right from the get-go?
Yeah, I've only been 66. It's the only real number. I think I ran a couple of races as 22 when I ran the mini stock for Mitch Egner, and then I think I ran one race at 11 when I drove Matt Mansell's car. But that's I've been 66 on everything I've been a part of as far as my cars or our cars for what we've done for racing.
And do you guys have any pre-race traditions before you're climbing behind the wheel of one of these things?
Not pre-race pre-race things, but that stool you're sitting on doesn't go anywhere but with us to a racetrack. That was my grandfather's stool, and that went to every racetrack for him. And I think the only time we didn't bring it, something crashed or we broke or something like that.
Yeah, we brought that. Dad was dying of cancer, and the only way to make him comfortable at the racetrack was to bring that stool that you're sitting on right now, Cole. So, yeah, it's been kind of one of those things it's not superstitious, but it's just a way of honoring Dad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that wraps up our first edition of Short Track Radio in a very long time. We've got to thank our sponsor, Smartwash. Cody, do you want to give Smartwash a plug? I know you know the owner.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's wonderful.
He's got a really hard worker.
Oh, he's got a great worker. Tommy Peggs is our camera guy. Smartwash has jumped on board. We're going to try to do some more funding for some cars this year for the 66 if he gets his shit together here. And it's a commercial cleaning company. We do office cleaning, house cleaning, pressure washing for trucks and driveways and everything. Trailers, RVs. There's a great RV outside that we cleaned up for. The owner's a little bit of a dick, but he paid right away, so that's good.
Are you allowed to say that?
You can say whatever you want.
This is a 6-year-old program.
This is off. Yes, it's online, so we're okay.
We're all good. Yeah, this goes through the Netherlands. So appreciate you guys coming on board and being the first to do this. I think that it's great to have local families still running in Victoria, and it's great to see you guys back together out on the track. So can't wait to see you out there this year.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate
you guys doing this, and it's a good thing for short track racing just in general to get the message out there and kind of introduce some of the personalities of it. So it's a great thing you guys are doing. Appreciate that.
Well, thanks for coming on, you guys. And this has been another edition of Short Track Radio. Stay tuned for whenever we feel like posting again.